All right, well, welcome. Thanks for joining us today. I'm so excited to share this because today we're doing part 3 of autoimmunity. And I've been kind of covering, what autoimmunity is. And then last month, we we talked with Steve on some of the new things that we have been learning about autoimmunity and how COVID has kind of, made that get worse in some ways with our histamine response also. And so now we're kind of sharing you what we have learned with some new scans that we have that really, really helps the body turn it around, get your life back, and really solve this whole spike protein and histamine response that we've been seeing in our clients and throughout the world in the last 5 years. So I wanted to give kind of an example of what we experience. A lot of times we talk about, that our bodies are like, sometimes as we live life, we get struck by lightning. And in other words, and Steve, you have a great example that explains how sometimes our bodies get struck by lightning and go totally off the rails, and trying to figure out how to put it back together is one of the things that we do best in quantum techniques. So if you want to share that example, I just think that's a great place to start because it really helps us dive into helping see the visual and understanding what's happening inside the body.
Well, I've got a lot of examples. Can you give me a hint on which story that one is?
Well, about how the breaker panel and how the lightning.
Okay. Yeah. Well, the body wants to survive. And so, like you say, if your house gets struck by lightning, it pops the circuit breakers. It literally turns off all the information and all the power that you need for every room so that your house didn't burn down. And that's a great thing. Your house didn't burn down. You've survived that incident. And that can be emotional trauma. It can be heavy metal toxicity, mold exposure, man-made. It could be a terrible infection. It could be COVID. But you have to go back and flip the circuit breakers. And if you don't flip the circuit breakers, the house is still standing, it's just not functional. Well, I would say if we think about autoimmune disease and our new approach, which is very new, just this year, it's like, oh, grasshopper, there are circuit breakers in every room for every outlet, not just one per room. And so we've learned how to go through and find the circuit breakers. And then not only we know the lightning strike caused the circuit breakers to pop. But once you turn on the circuit breakers in the room, now you can see in the air conditioning, now you can say, oh, that's right, we didn't have any light. There's where the rats are. There's where the termites are, all this dust blew up because the filters weren't working on the fan, So then you start to say, oh, when the body is not tracking what's going on, crap accumulates.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And not just physical, but non-physical.
Mm-hmm.
If you have an emotional trauma, and we've talked about parts work in QT, and there was a huge emotional trauma and you were too young to survive. You didn't have the awareness that God was there with you and you were never alone. You do the same thing. You create little rooms and you stuff all the rage in. And you survived that. But lo and behold, something comes along and drops a tiny bit more rage in the bucket and it overflows. And again, if the intensity of your emotion does not fit this event, this isn't what you're upset about. It's kind of like these stories of road rage. Somebody cuts you off, and so you pull out a gun and shoot them. You run them off the road and beat them with a baseball bat. I don't think that's the incident that caused the rage. You just had a bucket full, and it was just one more little bug on your windshield, and you were, off the deep end. Well, that happens too. And if we think about, and I'll talk about some of the causes of chronic illness. And for me, chronic and autoimmune are very closely tied. It's the same fields that keep them from healing. Okay. But, like I've got somebody who's, they're so afraid of having the tiniest tiniest sensation of detox, that I'm really limited in what I can do. And they're my age. So it's like they're driving a 1-ton truck that's carrying a 2-ton load. They're barely making it uphill. And it's smoking and belching, and you're going to take much to break the suspension. And somebody walks by and throws in a trash bag from McDonald's, and boom, it's done. It's all it took. It was that 1/4 ounce. She'll let me take off the 1/4 ounce that caused what crashed her today, but she's so afraid that if I unload the bricks, if I unload that 2-ton load, you're going to notice things are very different. At first, it's going to be so scary, you're going to think it's all bad. And yeah, the load may shift a little bit. You may notice some creaking and springs acting and everything acting different. Well, that's because we just took 2 tons off you. So with the deeper work, you've got to have some willingness/ability to tolerate some amount of healing crisis. Now, we can put filters on it. We can take, I'll say, tiny, tiny bites out of it. But you've got to be willing to say, I'm willing to feel uncomfortable for a little bit to feel a whole lot better in a week. And not everybody has the constitution to do that. Let's put it that way.
You talked about that truck, and I was wanting to share kind of an illustration that kind of shows another visual on kind of what's happening with the body. So I'm going to share my screen here real quick. If I can, let's see. Sometimes these things they have an issue. Well, anyway, I guess it's not wanting me to share it today, but it's the idea about that our bodies are like a bucket. And a lot of times, we get filled by all the things you just talked about, that, whether it's an inability to detox, it's generational miasms. Maybe it's, bad nutrition that you have. Maybe you haven't exercised. Maybe you moved your body a lot. Maybe you have a tremendous amount of stress, dental work, anesthesias, different medications or surgeries. And all of those start kind of filling that bucket. And then it's like, it gets to a point where it's overflowing. And so, like I said, the truck can't get up the hill, or you have these symptoms that, you experience. And what we do is get rid of those symptoms that you have, but we're also, the intent is trying to lower that bucket of load so you can handle things like you said, the trash of McDonald's that gets thrown in every so often. But that's the intent of what we're trying to do with our scans. And we've just had with this new ability right now to be able to figure out how to do that even better. So I'm excited about that, because that's going to help people lower that bucket even more and get rid of the symptoms.
Someone that's passed on, but I actually met with her when I first started doing QT. So that's, 26 years ago. And she was a child, well, she's a pediatrician, but was the first one that I knew of that went into environmental illness from the traditional medical, and her name was Doris Rapp. And she came up with that barrel.
Okay.
The problem with these kids is their barrel's already full, and she talked about food and environmental and vaccines way back then. And it just doesn't take much to put them over the top. And I'm finding, I think that's I know that's really what God's blessed us with this year, is ways to go deeper than quicker. I would say the new scans this year are more powerful than anything we've ever done, and they're quicker. And there's not as many layers. So you can do more quicker, which again saves the client money, but it doesn't have to be a journey that takes years or months even. So for chronic issues, I routinely see things in myself and my clients that I don't think I did not believe were possible. And when I get up, somebody asked me, because they know I do a lot of prayer and meditation. They said, "What's your number one meditation?" And it is, teach me to listen, give me ears to hear, because my goal today is I want to learn truth. more than I want to feel comfortable, more than I want pleasure. I want to walk away at the end of my day saying, I learned something new. And this is going to change my life and other people's. And I think that's, the scriptures, you should know the truth, it'll set you free. Pray without ceasing. God's going to give you the desires of your heart. He didn't say your imagination. Imagination, you're going to win the lottery and, everybody's going to think you're popular and you'll never have another wrinkle or anything else. And it's like, and when if you've ever gotten that place, you realize, oh, I just need one more external thing. That's a kind of no-win game. And I got to be honest, I played it a long time. I had my fun, been there, done that, but it didn't have any holding power, so to speak. It's like eating top ramen, it tastes pretty good, but in 30 seconds, I'm hungry again, right?
Well, and you said something to me just recently that I think really hit home, and saying that, yes, give me the desires of my heart, but if that's not what you want, then change the desires of your heart. And right. I think that really helped me kind of shift. Because it's like I'm a mountain girl and stuff like that, and I'm moving to a place that doesn't have any mountains, but I can appreciate the small things. I've really enjoyed where I live right now because it's like living in the Garden of Eden. But with the Garden of Eden comes a lot of mold and mosquitoes. Right. so the next place I'm moving may have a little more tornadoes, kind of thing. But I've always kind of lived by the thing of saying, I can bloom where I'm planted, and just really trying to keep that as a mantra.
Well, and I also think God will give you the desires of your heart, or change those desires. And here's the key word: in His time, His way. I think you're going to end up in a beautiful place in the mountains. You're still on the journey.
I certainly visit every time I get a chance.
I had a great 15 years in Maui, but I wouldn't trade it for where I am now. I mean, the beauty of the landscapes here, the mountains, the sunsets. We didn't have those mountains. I mean, we had beauty, but we didn't have this kind of sunsets and clouds and weather. I mean, I had more mosquito bites in one day in Maui than I've had in the 5 years I've been back here.
I definitely can relate to that. I got one on my elbow, itches at the moment.
Right. Yeah, it's kind of interesting. I didn't know what mosquito. I thought I knew what mosquitoes were before I moved to Maui, but I didn't. So if we talk about this for a second, what, and these are before we even mention the new scans, what makes something chronic? And again, chronic autoimmune, for me, and the things I'm approaching it, they're interchangeable. One is your current lifestyle. You're living in mold, Glade plugins, and you're eating bad foods. And I would say that's number one. And number two is, you've got new infections all the time. And, when I start working with somebody, I may see there's a huge consciousness issue they need to address. They're always living in terror of the future. Or there's a lot of trauma with their mom. They didn't come to me for that. They came to me because their shoulder hurts and they can't get out of bed. I am going to address what can they handle, what truth can they hear today. They're not going to hear about, they're carrying rage at their mother and their grandfather in their shoulder, and they need to go on a consciousness journey. They're already talking to this weird guy onto the phone, right? Let's not take them to planet Xenon yet. But if I give them significant pain relief in 3 weeks, I can tell them anything. And now I've got validity. And now they're willing to listen because I've given them truth. They're starting to resonate with a truth that they're ready to hear. Now I can start sharing truths that maybe they're not quite as ready to hear. But number one is current lifestyle. Number two, and this is something I look at Doris Rapp, and to be honest, almost every natural and I'll say unnatural, i.e. traditional medicine, perspective, there's hidden frequencies and hidden spokes behind hidden curtains. They don't know what that means. They don't even know what spokes are. They don't know, you mean all the organs need to communicate? And if they don't, we might have a little healing problem here, you know. So that's something we've known before now, but we've got new tools. I would say this. I have seen this. It's not super common. I'm going to give some examples. But rarely by the time a person gets to me in cancer, MS, MS, Parkinson's would be some examples.
Mhm.
And that is, I've had people with MS, early diagnosis, limited range of motion. Same thing with strokes, maybe going blind. And I've been able to revert long ago. I haven't had a new MS patient for a couple of years, so I've got so many new things. But I could get rid of that back then. I remember a great guy in Maui, he was in a wheelchair, been in a wheelchair for 15 years, MS. With the tools I had then, and I don't know if it would have been different now, but there was so much tissue damage and demyelinating of the nerve sheath. His body with the skill set I had then could not regenerate. We stopped its progression, but it didn't get better.
Mhm.
I've seen that with cancer. Somebody comes to me with a slow growing cancer, prostate's an example. I've seen other kinds of cancer, lymphoma, reversible. They come to with stage 4 and, that's metastasized throughout the body. At that point, I don't think even with the new stuff, I can turn it around. There's been too much tissue damage before it was discovered. Okay. I think the other thing is the body is too depleted nutritionally. A person's chronically dehydrated. You and I share one of these clients, chronic sleep deprivation, too much stress, poor nutrition, and they can't stand autonomic balance. That's one of the things we look at. If you're in parasympathetic overdrive, then you don't go into restorative sleep. You don't have restorative day. You don't meditate. So your body's always in a fight or flight response. The immune system's depressed, your detoxification shut down. That's pretty common. I have seen very few people with autoimmune disease that did not have some early severe trauma that set their body up to live in a first state. I have seen some, but it's very rare.
Mhm.
And it's kind of interesting going back to too much DNA damage. Don't believe your doctors. That'll kill you pretty quickly. And personal example, when I was 33, so 37 years ago, I was doing some real heavy weight training. And back then I had a migraine all the time. And so one of the ways I got control over my migraines is to work out with really heavy weights very intensely and create an adrenaline field. A lot of times I was on Vicodin for pain for my migraines when I was doing that. Not a good combination if you tend to push yourself too hard. So I damaged my right elbow pretty badly. It never fully recovered. It was about 50% when I came here. So I couldn't weight train anymore. And if I were, I couldn't go out and, use a hammer and nail nails all day or use an axe, split wood. I didn't have that ability. When I was here 2 or 3 years ago, we had a heavy snowfall, which in my house, like 8 inches, I could have left it alone, and just let it melt and drive out in a couple of days. But I decided, let me try my shovel. Well, the problem with this injury is I don't feel the pain at the time, but then the next day I can't use it. So my functioning ability in that elbow dropped from a 5 to a 2. I mean, I had, like, you see me drinking water all the time because I have a dry throat. I couldn't lift a water glass with my left hand, with my right hand. So, so I got, MRIs and CAT scans with a specialist, and his diagnosis was, well, unless we get artificial elbows, not much I can do for you. He said, you have completely severed some tendons and ligaments in that elbow, and it's not going to grow back. That's not possible. But if that's causing you pain, there's that bone that you're not using anymore because it's not connected. I can just cut off a half an inch of that. And I said, no, we don't need to be cutting off bones. Well, I did get a stem cell injection. And it was like $5,000 in that arm. And I got it back to 50%. And that's where it was in December. By doing the new scans until the latest new scan, okay, I got it up to 70%. No, I got up to 70%. 10 days ago, I did a new scan because what we're doing is evolving so quickly. And now I have very extensive charts of all the connective tissue, everything in the joints. And right now it's 90%. I can do things with it I've not been able to do for 30 years. I think it'll go 100%. And then I can get back to weight training. So what I'm saying is, yeah, I have run into cases. Now, again, I've got 2 or 3 cancer cases right now that are too far progressed for me to. I don't have the skill set to do more than I've done. Let's put it that way. Right now, I always believe there's healing available, and I haven't had an MS or a Parkinson's client for a while that's worked on that. But I do think there's a point at which there's so much tissue damage that it's we don't currently know how to reverse it. I think God does. I haven't, that hasn't been revealed to me for sure. Another number 5 on that, what makes something chronic, is you can't detox. And, people will say, well, my methylation or this or that. And it's like, well, okay, that's just a fancy name. Okay. And you can be born that way, but heavy metals do that. Let's just go in and treat it like anything else. And I have done, we're calling the first aspect of the new way of treating chronic issues a detox deep dive. I want to call it that. I think that's going to make a difference. It sure has for me. I found in my elbow, I don't have the notes in front of you, 13 categories of things that were blocking those connective tissue from healing. And we're talking anesthesias that always blocks healing. I had a few steroid injections in there. I had heavy metals, I welded for years. I had all kinds of pathogens. I had mycoplasma and protozoa, and I'd never found those on myself. So, no, was I willing to feel a little crummy for a day to get my elbow back? Yeah. Was it terrible detox? No, but it was there. And usually for me, it's fatigue. Sometimes I'll have pain shifting, which that's good. I'm, getting out of the elbow some other places, it'll go away. But every week with the new stuff, I would have to say has been a miracle, dramatically better than the last week. And we're going almost into June, and that's since the first week in January. So am I willing to go through discomfort with a 99% probability of doing better than I have or ever have done in a week? I'll take those odds, I think this is, I put this towards the end. You can get better from a chronic illness or an autoimmune disease, but you're not going to completely heal unless you change your level of consciousness. Now, what does that mean? And, that may be another great Zoom call to do down the road. When I was in, I'm in less pain than I've ever been in my life. I started chronic pain when I was 13, 180 pounds of concrete fell 8 feet, hit me in the head. Migraines didn't start until mold exposure and when I was 23 in grad school. But I have lived with severe neck, head, and shoulder pain for, if you look at that, 57 years. I don't have it anymore. Period. I didn't think that was possible. That's what I'm saying. Don't let your doctor convince you that you can't heal. Okay. But what that meant was for all those years, I always was I was stuck in the past. I didn't want to live in the present moment because it hurt too much jumping to the future. Because I was stuck in the past, I know how bad the pain gets. How can I prevent that from happening tomorrow? I would honestly say, and anybody that knew me would say this is true, I never procrastinated for 57 years. Because I didn't know if I got up tomorrow, if I was going to be able to do anything. I didn't know if I was going to be able to study, because I could have a headache take me out anytime. So I always had this urgency. Everything I can imagine, I have to get it done right now, because I may not get it done 2 days from now. The problem with that is you don't encounter God. Well, so let me go back. I was living in my imagination, the past and the future. Well, guess what? You don't encounter God or healing in the past or future. That's in the present moment. Now you have your imagination about God, imagination about healing, but you don't actually encounter it. Kind of fascinating. I've done a lot of different modalities over the years. And one of the things I learned, and this gets back to a teaser for what we're probably going to do next time, which is neuroplasticity. Okay. I realized that, and first thing we didn't even use the word neuroplasticity. I was 28 years old, studying at very advanced hypnotherapy and for chronic pain. And one of the things you can do with hypnosis is create amnesia. We found that if you had somebody in chronic pain, like when I was in chronic pain, I had the headache. That was 1/3 of my pain. I was remembering the worst headache I ever had. That was another third of my pain. I was imagining my worst headache's going to be this headache going into the future. That was my pain. So if you could just simply erase all memory of headaches, you would reduce your pain by 2/3 like that. Oh, you mean if I'm living in the past, it doesn't go well for me? Yeah. Pain is inevitable, but suffering is your story about it and what time zone do you live in. Okay, so my story was, this is going to get as bad as the last one I remember, and maybe tomorrow, and maybe later today, but it's not getting better because they don't get better, right? Mm-hmm. So I had to let my consciousness shift. And, for me, consciousness doesn't shift when things are going well. Okay. If God loves you enough to want you to be free and your consciousness shift, he's got to allow things that you choose in your life to come home to rest. My consciousness never really shifted until I was broken. And I could not figure out, no matter how smart I was, I couldn't find a solution. Now, God had a solution, but I couldn't figure it out. And that was when the IRS came after me, for things that my first wife and my CPA did. I didn't even know anything about it, but they wanted to put me in prison for 20 years. So I lost everything I ever worked for all my life. And I was told, you're going to prison. Well, that kind of, that kind of tells you, well, I sure can't live in the future anymore, right? And this was part of my shift. I remember, dark night of the soul for me is, okay, I can't take care of anybody. I can't help anybody. I'm living in prison. I'm environmentally sensitive and I'm food sensitive. Should I just kill myself now? I mean, literally, should I just kill myself? I can't imagine that. And then as I got into consciousness work, and, Guy Finley was my first entry point. His book, The Essential Laws of Fearless Living, was life-changing for me. I've read everything he and his mentor have ever written several times over. I've met with Guy Finley. I've trained with him. And I got up one morning and I only shaved my neck because I got a beard, right? So I'm shaving and I said, I wonder who the jerk is that's putting me in prison. I mean, I was living in Maui. I had a great practice, ate good food, lived in a clean environment, had a beautiful wife. I'm going to the beach. Life's good. Why am I suffering so much? Mm-hmm. I found the jerk doing that to me. I was looking at him when I was shaving my neck, and it was my stinking imagination. So I've worked diligently at firing that. Because if you have chronic pain or autoimmune disorder, living in a time zone other than right now in gratitude and living in your imagination, the suffering goes up exponentially, unbelievably. Okay. And I would say the last thing, and I put it there because in my experience, it really is the last thing in chronic illness, is secondary gain. I'm sick, so I get love and affection. I'm sick, so I don't have to work hard. And to put that into a kind of a statistical perspective, 30 years ago, and think about how crude, I don't think they had neurosurgery 30 years ago. They had orthopedic surgery, where they cut in your back and huge scars and bones and plates and screws and all this stuff, But 30 years ago, 95% of all the people that had a back surgery returned to work. Today, it's 3%. Well, think about it. By the time you get back surgery with our current system, you've already lost your whole identity. I was a hard worker. I'm not a hard worker. I was a provider. I'm not a provider anymore. Okay. Even if I had a good job, by the time I get the surgery, it's gone. I'd have to start all over again. My skills may be obsolete. Okay. And so the only way I make my income is my disability and insurance payments. And I only get that if I hold on to pain. And I'm not saying it's a conscious choice that I'm just faking to hold on to pain. I'm not saying that. But I do know someone I worked with years ago. I was their therapist, and they lost their license in their healthcare provision for things they did with clients inappropriately. And they had severe depression, and they had a huge insurance policy before all medicine collapsed. If they got rid of their anxiety and depression, they would lose their entire income, and they'd have to go back, and they probably could not get recertified in the medical field because of some crimes they committed. And it's like, they would say, listen, don't do any of that new stuff right before I go for my yearly evaluation because I don't want to feel better. And it's like, okay, well, that guy kind of had a consciousness, right? He's kind of like saying, I want to feel a little bit better, but not so good that they'll take my disability away. That's much more the disability. People that come to me, they're paying cash. Nobody's paying their bill. That's one of the reasons we have a higher success. But that is something that does happen with some people. And, you often find they've got the identified patient, their family, their spouse gives up their job, take care of them. I can remember another person years ago. I actually wasn't even doing this work yet. And I was a psychologist, but I was a chronic pain, specialty. And a lady came to see me in a wheelchair with MS, and I got her history. And her husband brought her in, and he was bringing her in and getting her water and going out the car and getting a Kleenex and all that. Wow. So first thing I notice is anything that's unusual. And I said to her, wow, I got to be honest with you. Man, your husband's a great guy. I have never seen a man that attentive to his wife in my entire life. She goes, well, he wasn't that way before. I said, what do you mean? He didn't give me the time of day. Now he's retired. He fixes my food. He takes care of me. He helps bathe me. He does everything. I said, that's wonderful. When did it change? She goes, when I got, MS. And we did that work. And guess what? In 2 weeks, and I talked to a neurologist in 2 weeks, she was walking out of a wheelchair, got him a little couples counseling. But again, it was meeting a need that she couldn't get met before. I don't find that's very common, but I do find it.
I find a lot in moms because they do
Right.
so much for
Right.
everybody else, and then they get a headache, and it's their chance to say, okay, time out, I can take a break and get
Right.
that permission.
Yeah. Not tonight, dear. I have a headache. That's well, you look at those funny stories, there's a truth to a lot of them,
Mhm.
you know. And I was always trying to, look at, do I get secondary gain of my migraines? No, I just keep working. I just, take a break and vomit in between sessions and rinse out my mouth and brush my teeth and go back. And my wife gets really angry at me because she thinks I must have done something to deserve this. Well, I was doing something, eating foods and stuff, but I didn't know that, right? So, yeah, yeah. Let me say this. I think there's a secondary gain that we don't think about that's pretty powerful, is a need to be punished for some past offense. So maybe you've done something unforgivable, like hurt somebody that you loved, or common thing with women is having an abortion. And then later on developing chronic pain as they have children and realize what they did. I'm not picking on anybody, but a lot of times, people's pain is a way to feel okay with the pain they've caused somebody else. I want to use it that way. As long as they're suffering, I'm not saying it's smart. I'm just saying it's the unconscious does interesting things.
Yeah. No,
Yeah.
and that explains a client that I work with, that they feel like they've created pain for others, and so it's like they're wearing as they don't mean to wear it as a badge, but it's like, I deserve the suffering, because of that.
Well, and I would say as a category, I don't like to, this is not racial profiling. This is occupational profiling. Healers often go into healing because there was somebody, I'm speaking to myself here. My mom's bipolar schizophrenic. They couldn't heal them.
Mhm.
And they carry that guilt pretty deeply. It drives them pretty hard.
Mhm.
And and you're always going to find somebody that you can't help, whether you don't have the skill set yet, or they don't want to heal. You're always going to have failures. That's life. And hopefully you say, what can I learn from this?
Mhm.
But yeah, again, if I'm punishing myself for something in the past, guess what? I'm not the same guy I was last week, much less 30 years ago.
Mhm.
And I think, this is why Christ said, if you do not forgive those who've harmed you, I cannot forgive you before my Father in heaven. Why is that? Because anybody you don't forgive, you carry that damage in your body. And you've just said, God, this pain and suffering is mine. I won't allow you to touch, remove it, or heal it. No, this is mine. I want to keep it. So, the first, maybe the first step in living the present moment is forgiving yourself, others, and God. Because God didn't show up and give you what you were supposed to get, right?
Mhm.
So, God needs to be forgiven. Yeah.
That's very good. So we have new scans that can help really get after the autoimmunity and then help with the detox. We did have a question that came in from someone that's going to be listening to the replay and said, is there, how to clear toxic pathways so they're not so slow? And if you had any ideas on how to, if our new scans will help it go a little bit quicker, maybe.
Well, two metaphors. If you're playing a ball, I'm playing my football team against your football team, and I think all my team's on the field, but only 6 guys are there. The other 6 are holograms. They're not really there. I just think they're there.
Mhm.
Are you going to win that game?
Mhm.
No. When your detox is compromised, you have usually, well, we're talking about the physical now. We're not talking about living in fight or flight. Okay, we're just talking about the physical. First thing is, you do not have 100% of all the organ glands and tissues. You don't have their communication, or you don't have their participation in the toxins they hold and the energy they need to release for healing this. That's number one. And we have some fantastic new ways to get to that. We had them before the training. We've got two more. One showed up in the training, one right after. So, number two, well, if you have 12 members, but only 6 show up, and the 6 tell you, oh, we had some bad pizza last night and I got a cold. But the other 6 said, it wasn't just the pizza. There's mold in the bus where we go to the game. Okay. There's arsenic and rat poison in the locker room. And I've had the flu for 6 months and I got COVID. Well, guess what? If you don't have those 6 other players giving you data, and then you can't possibly get all the information. So block, detox, I could use the word detox or immunity. Block, detox, immunity, endocrine function, metabolic rate, anti-aging. You are missing some of the players on the field. We call those spokes. And you don't have all the things that the body is dealing with. It's not on their radar. It's kind of like your submarine. You can only shoot what you can see in your radar. If your radar's not working, guess what? Somebody's going to shoot you because you can't see them. Well, that's what we're dealing with.
Yeah, it's like I have a mosquito bite right here and it itches. And it's like, okay, well, clear the bite, but it still itches. It's like, okay, well, obviously my body's not seeing what's there. Right. So it's like, oh, well, with that bite came in a bacteria. So now I've told the body, well, clear the bite and the bacteria. And it's like, oh, okay, sure. And then it starts itching. So it's really good those players or what's there.
And let's go deeper. With the new scans, I would say if you get really reactive to bites, and anybody that's worked with me knows this, or bites are knocking off your treatment, I'll bet you if we connect all of the organs and players that need to talk to us, we're going to find you have a big injectant field that never cleared. Bites, old bites, and likely old anesthesias, because those are related to bites and their ability to hide information. And all of a sudden, you're much less reactive to bites. Something else that I've got a few people that I'm one of these, if I was at a restaurant, outdoor restaurant with Beth, and we're both wearing tank tops and shorts, I'd get 35 bites, she'd get 2. And I don't think it's just I'm innately sweeter. Okay. I think it does have something to do with my I'm always running really warm and she wasn't. I think that's part of it. But we're now finding that a lot of times biting insects, spiders, fleas are more attracted to someone who has a pancreas issue. They have a blood sugar issue. Never knew how to get to that. I know how to get to that now. So the question is, if we get to that, are they also going to get a lot fewer bites? Because they say, well, this person's not as sweet as somebody with this pancreas insulin issue. Look, get somebody else. I'm not pre-diabetic, but I did have low blood sugar for many years. And let's go back. I was actually diagnosed with low blood sugar in high school. Mm-hmm. I had to eat protein frequently. I could never fast for any length of time. And much of my life, I would have to eat protein before I go to bed and get up during the night and eat. Since January and clearing this, I don't have that issue. I've lost, this morning I was under 190. I was 19 last time. But post-COVID, all that stuff, I was 228 in January. So that's 39 pounds, and I'm having fun. I'm just seeing where it's going, But what's interesting is I never had the pancreas show up until these new scans.
Mm.
So I don't know, but now it's like, I eat breakfast, I get up at 3. Okay. 3:15 sleeping in. So I'm, 2:30 is kind of early, but so I usually eat my breakfast by 4:30. So I usually eat lunch before noon, and then right now I don't have to eat. I don't eat after that. I have a little bowl of popcorn that I give to my Rottweiler. I get 7 kernels because I'm not great on carbs, so I want to keep losing weight. And maybe I'll have, if I'm hungry, a piece of beef jerky or a little piece of chicken, just meat and protein. And the weight's just, it's kind of fascinating to see how quick it goes off. It's kind of a game I'm playing to see how lean I can get, But the thing is, I don't have hunger. I don't have any of the brain fog, headaches, all the symptoms I had if I didn't go eat protein every 4 hours. So what I'm saying is all these things, it take a long list to say, what are the things that I never thought could possibly be this good? It's a pretty long list. And it's like, it's pretty much a clean list. The physical, emotional, energy, from going to 2 naps every day to 3. I've taken 1 nap in January, and a lot of times at 7 o'clock at night, and like I say, I start at 3:30. It's like, what am I going to do to wind down so I can get some sleep tonight? So it's pretty sweet, but all these things we're going back, and the other thing that we do check for on a new scan that I think is worth mentioning, we clear all the hidden fields, but then we check a lot of specific neurotransmitters that get involved. And at the end, I know we're running out of time, I just want to share these 2 things and then give a teaser. Autophagy is, can the body get rid of cellular debris? As you age, that becomes harder. Apoptosis is proper timing of cell death. Also bad with DNA damage like cataracts or cancer. We can clear that. Do we have a small group? I don't think we have questions right now, right?
Not I'm aware of. No one's written any questions, but if you have any, certainly be welcome. Like I said, I got that one question from someone that is going to watch the replay, was curious how to let go of that. Yeah, I do think the mosquitoes like people in different areas. Like if I go to Colorado, I never get bit by mosquitoes, but my husband does.
Okay.
Here, I get bit all the time, and he doesn't get bit at all. And so it's weird.
Well, let me say one teaser for next time that we ought to think about.
Sure.
Is the neuroplasticity scan. And you think about, and I really have recommended them, Annie Hopper's work and Gupta, and it's a cognitive retraining. And, to use my old metaphor, somebody drove down a muddy forest road, since Jody and I know about those. And now there's such deep ruts, you can't drive on that road without getting trapped, and you can only go where they've gone. Okay. That's cognitive rigidity. If I think about metaphors, so Gupta and Annie Hopper, they're saying, you can get away from those ruts. We're going to get you a 4-wheel drive truck, a chainsaw, a winch, and a high-low jack. If you've ever been off-road, you know what all those things are. So when you hit a block in the road, you can just cut some more trees, winch yourself out, pull yourself along, get stuck, jack yourself up, put logs on. You will eventually build a new road. Takes a lot of time and effort. I think I've found the secret thing to clear physically the tissue for neuroplasticity. And when you do, I think it's like, well, instead of cutting that new road, by hand, why don't we just drive a bulldozer over the old one? And then all those ruts are gone. And I think that's what the new scan does. very interesting, some signs of neuroplasticity, cognitive loops. Okay, but anyone with chronic pain has a neurorigidity issue. Oh, my head hurts, it's going to go into a migraine. So what I've found is also if you only have a pain on one side of your body, it's because it's cognitive rigidity. Like my migraines are always on the right. I'd ask my neurologist, oh, we don't know. Other pains are always on the left. What is that? Oh, nobody knows. I think I found the solution for that. So, and we didn't actually teach that at our training this weekend because it's brand new.
Well,
But
that's my dad's issue. He always has it on one side. You know.
well, and that'll be on our next QT practitioner call on next Wednesday. I'll go over it with everybody in our team. That's part of the value of being on our team.
Yeah.
And, you know, that'll be one of the things that we make sure we nail at our next training. And actually, we're going to do a follow-up training in 6 weeks or 4 weeks where we can have everybody practice everything we taught and then make sure everybody's up to speed on it. So lots of fun, exciting new stuff.
Yeah. So just to kind of cover, we covered, I think, 5 or 7 areas of chronic illness, and why
There were 7. Yeah, 7 things, maybe 8. Let me check. Yeah. No, we had 8. We had 8.
And so
why
they stay stuck.
Right.
That's what we covered at the beginning. And then talking about, we do have some new scans that really help get to the heart of autoimmunity or inflammation, histamine response, and what we've been living through with the last 5 years, and not getting the body to stop overreacting or having the symptoms that you thought you got rid of years ago, and they've come back kind of with a vengeance. And so clearing those. And so and sometimes we call it like playing whack-a-mole, and so we've really gotten to the heart of like, okay, what exactly is going on so that we're not doing that so much and being able to solve that quickly. And the new scans, it's kind of like, you know, you call us, you know, we do them quickly. It doesn't take very long. And then, you know, we usually have you call back right away if you have some, you know, detox that we need to clear that doesn't take very long to clear. But typically your body will start clearing everything we work on for about, I think you said about 2 weeks. It takes to kind of clear that out. And then we can see at that point where you're at and see if there's certain areas that we found that were still being impacted that we need to clear or go to a deeper level on. But that's kind of what we're doing, and we're so excited about it because we really can see the difference for sure.
Well, listen, you guys have a blessed one.
All right. Well, great. We look forward to you calling and getting kind of those things solved, learning how to do it, and want you to have a blessed day. So thanks for listening to Autoimmunity number 3. Sounds like we'll do something again next month. I'm not sure exactly where I'll be, but we can plan that.
Have a good one. Take care.
All right. Blessings. Thanks, everyone.